In our small town, whispers of the Henderson estate had circulated for years. Nestled on the outskirts, the dilapidated house stood isolated, shadowed by towering, lifeless trees. It was an orb of darkness in the night, windows like hollowed eyes, and the air around it weighed heavy with dread. No one ventured near, and even daylight seemed to avoid that place. But adolescents are driven by an insatiable curiosity and an inherent sense of invincibility. So when dared, I accepted. The Henderson estate, long abandoned, had belonged to a reclusive widow, Mrs. Henderson, who, as rumor had it, vanished without a trace. Her passion for exotic collectibles was well known, and it was one piece in particular that led me there: a music box, an enigma in our sleepy town, as some nights its melancholic tune would drift through the wind, a siren's call to the brave or foolish. Sneaking in was surprisingly easy, or perhaps it was allowed. The house was a time capsule, draped in cobwebs, the air thick with dust and decay. It was as if the place was swallowing its own history. Drawn to the melancholic melody, I found myself in what appeared to be Mrs. Henderson's study, an elaborate music box on her desk, the room colder than the rest of the house. With trepidation, I reached out, the carvings on the box intricate, depicting scenes of dance and revelry, a stark contrast to the somber tune and the suffocating atmosphere of dread. Yet as my fingers brushed the surface, the music warped, a cacophony of screams and chaotic orchestration, and the room darkened impossibly. Panic set in, a primal urge to flee. But something in the shadows whispered, a rustling of movement, and I was no longer alone. What happened next is a blur of terror. Faces appeared in the darkness, twisted in agony, and the air turned suffocatingly tight. The last thing I remember was the sight of Mrs. Henderson, not as an old widow but a twisted shadow, her eyes pools of despair, her mouth an open chasm as if to consume everything around her. I awoke to sunlight, the silent house now just a decaying building, the music box silent and mundane. No one believed my tale, attributing it to an overactive imagination. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear the echoes of that twisted melody, see the hollow despair in Mrs. Henderson's eyes, and I know she's still there, waiting in the silence of the forgotten estate. And the most terrifying part? I find myself yearning to return, a part of me left behind in that forlorn study, forever entwined with the enigma of the Henderson estate. Follow for more.